Well, hello, welcome to another Brontëlong reading vlog. Yesterday, during reading sprints with Lucy and Sarah, I started Villette by Charlotte Brontë. I've never read this book before, so this will be the last Brontë novel that I read for the first time, which is sad and exciting at the same time. Having a great time so far. I find Lucy Snow an interesting character. Before we get started with this reading vlog, it will be fully spoilery. So if you have not read this book and you are planning to read it, maybe don't watch this vlog. There are many other videos on my channel and go check those out instead of this one. There was a glare in my computer glasses. But Villette by Charlotte Brontë. The first thing I noticed is that this book is in first person, but the story is not about the main character, which I cannot recall ever reading a book in first person where the main character is not actually the main character of the story. So I feel like in the first few chapters we only get to know Polly and the story is about Polly. And I think, oh, I was not long allowed the amusement of this study of character. She had scarcely been at Bretton 2 months when a letter came from Mr. Home, signifying that he was now settled amongst them, that she's going away. So she starts her story out with telling the story of someone else. And I feel like, is that going to be important in the story? Because why would the novel start out that way? I am not sure about her class, which is something that in a later chapter she does hint at the fact that she is not a servant. And I feel like maybe her family was more wealthy, but that it's just her now. I'm sure it's on the back, and that's why I'm not going to read it, because I like to just figure it out myself. I've read the first 5 chapters yesterday evening, and so far I feel like Lucy is just being tossed around from place to place. We're going to read from like a Sense and Sensibility type of situation, but without the sisters, but where a woman just has to find her place and is so dependent on other people, and she cannot just have a chill time. Which I feel is a very vague way of saying that this is probably going to be a tragic book. That's okay, I have plans to read 50 pages a day. Like, I have tapped it. So I should finish this in about 12 to 14 days. So again, this vlog is going to be spoilery because I just want to share all my immediate thoughts about this book. Well, hello and welcome to a very rainy and gloomy day. It's also laundry day. I cannot close the door because we have a very angry Nora. She has been a piece of work. I do not know what is up with her, but she is trashing the house and she is making both Max and Bella accomplices. So I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I don't think it will end well for me. Don't have similar feelings on Villette, luckily. Yesterday evening I finished volume 1. First off, I'm really liking Villette. I think this is going to be one of my favorite Brontë novels. Going in, did not think that would be the case. This is so well written, it's so beautiful, it has such gorgeous passages and you can just see how well developed Charlotte Brontë had gotten as an author. It's so good. I do see similarities with The Professor, which was the first novel that Charlotte Brontë wrote, but it's so much better. It's so much more developed. The characters are way more layered and interesting. What are you doing? Oh, for crying out loud. I think the way that Charlotte Brontë wrote about mental health, it is amazing because so many things that she describes I know to be signs of depression. Not because I've personally suffered from depression, but because of other reasons, and also because of our modern day knowledge. And I think without having the clinical term, Charlotte Brontë just portrayed what depression is so well, so detailed, so accurate. No, you're not typing on my computer, calm down. That keyboard is expensive. calm down. Okay, good boy. Mental health, written so well. There are a few passages that just, I felt like, wow, how well did she know this? And because of the lack of knowledge back then, I can only feel that she knew it because she lived it. And that because of that, she was able to write a character with those symptoms so incredibly well. This sentence, one of my favorite sentences on page 124 in my edition, it says, "Shades, certainly not striking enough to interest, and perhaps not prominent enough to offend, but born in and with me, and no more to be parted than my identity." She says that all the dark feelings and thoughts she has is as much a part of her as her character, which, ooh, that is some heavy stuff. Oh, I also had an oh my god no moment when she talks about physiognomy, which I think is such a big part of Victorian literature, but it's so icky for a modern reader, and I do think Charlotte Brontë is sometimes guilty of using that in all of her novels. Also, a thing I like about Lucy Snowe as a character is that she has a lot of very positive and admirable relationships with other women. It is necessary for her as a character. It makes her very interesting. Madame Beck is, even though she is very different than Lucy, I can see that she admires her and accepts their differences. It is such a hard thing to do when you're young. I think for me it was really hard to accept and admire someone even though they are very different from your views. Of course, we have the scene later on at the very end of part 1 where she goes to the Catholic Church and has quite a positive experience that almost feels like a sexual experience in a way that it holds so much shame for her as a Protestant woman. I really love that bit. It made me think of a certain scene from a certain series. Like, if you know, you know. Just to be clear, it is not a sexual experience. There is a chapter that I both deeply love and really do not like. Effort-wise, I would compare it to the chapter of the Council of Elrond in the Fellowship of the Ring that this took me the whole day to read. Like, of course I took breaks, but I needed like 4 breaks in this chapter to get through it, and that is the Villette, which hopefully I say right. Reading this book has been a humbling experience in how much I have lost of my French. I have to look up almost every word, and it's deeply humbling and embarrassing for someone who has had 3 years of French in high school. This is the chapter where they do the play, and there's so much in this chapter. So much. I'm not going to be able to unpack it all, but I'll do an attempt. I'll share with you the things that I noticed and thought was really good in the chapter. So of course, first, when she is locked in the attic, I wrote down "Hello Bertha." If that is not a Jane Eyre reference, I don't know what is. But simultaneously it made me wonder, what is Charlotte Bronte's fascination with attics? Also, I think the man who locks her in the attic is going to be her love interest. I think so. Of course, I do not like him, but I don't like any of Charlotte Bronte's love interests, which maybe makes me think that he is going to be it. But I think so because I think the love interest is going to be a professor, and he is a professor. So he locks her in the attic, watches her go away. Later on, she is going to be a part of the play, which at first she didn't really want to do, but she accepts it, she does it. And then she's supposed to dress as a man, and that she bluntly refuses. How must it be then? How accept a man's part and go on the stage dressed as a woman? If that is not a metaphor. I love that Charlotte Brontë is more outspoken in her views of women and men. It is in Jane Eyre, but I feel like she is so much more vocal and brave about it in this book. Of course, in Shirley we have Charlotte Bronte's attempt in writing Shirley, who is a character that is a woman but behaves like men in a way that men and women were perceived in the Victorian era. I'm sorry, I do not have the right words. This is just a better book so far, I think. That chapter is so good, but let me tell you how many French sentences that chapter has. I am not complaining about the fact that there's French in this book, because it makes sense since the character is in a French-speaking region, so of course people are going to speak French, and I think that's totally fine. But why do they have to put the translations in the back? Because me reading was this is what that chapter was like to read, and it was not pleasurable. Why will they not put a translation just on the back of the page so that I don't have to tire out my wrist while reading? But chapter 14 has 42 translations. 42 French sentences in an English book that I had to flip to. It's getting me out of the flow of the book, and therefore this book is taking me a long time. And usually I would listen to the audiobook along, but that won't work if you have to keep on flipping. So yeah, I really don't like the way that they put the translations in the back. I will update you when I've read a little bit more. I have finished part 2 of Villette, and I think I preferred part 1. I think part 2 is getting slower. There were a lot of passages that I just read and kind of forgot right away after reading it. I don't know if I want to call it a plot hole, but the fact that all these characters come together and that they have forgotten each other, like that they don't recognize each other, to me that feels like a plot hole. Because how did Dr. John and Lucy not recognize each other immediately? If you have lived together for a period of time and then even if it's like a decade past, you see each other, you recognize each other, right? I find it so strange and it doesn't feel believable at all. I do like that we have the characters from the first chapter and that they come back together. I really like that we got to see Polly again, because I was really wondering what the point of her was in the first few chapters. I do feel like Polly's storyline and Lucy's storyline are going to intertwine more in part 3. So I do like that, but the fact that they didn't recognize each other feels so odd. Also don't know how I feel about the fact that Dr. John is clearly going to have a romantic attachment with Polly, and they formed a friendship when she was 6 years old. It feels a bit icky, clearly it feels icky to me. I do think that again in this part depression is talked about so ingeniously that it's something I think is going to be very well done throughout the entire novel. One of my favorite bits of that was on page 296, is when I think it's Dr. John who tells Lucy that she has to create her own happiness. Being told to cultivate happiness. What does such advice mean? Cultivate happiness. Do you cultivate happiness? How do you manage? I do not give way to melancholy. I think is still a discussion a lot of people with depression need to have, even with healthcare providers, that you can't just think away depression. That is not something you give into, it's just an illness that you have. And I thought Charlotte Brontë is doing a good job of portraying that misunderstanding. Something interesting about women working is of course when Lucy meets Polly again. Lucy tells that she's a teacher but that she doesn't necessarily enjoy it. Polly suggests that she will be a companion to her, but that is not something that Lucy wants to do at all. My qualifications were not convertible, not adaptable. They could not be made to foil of any gem, the adjunct of any beauty, the appendage of any greatness in Christendom. Did I say that right? I don't know. I do like the discussions of women working, and then Polly's father said that he wished she would behave as well as Lucy would do in a similar situation. It's interesting, but again I think part 2 is really quite slow. It's definitely one of those middle parts. It didn't pique my interest in that many different parts. Also I do have to say I could almost rank my hatred for Charlotte Brontë love interest, because Monsieur Paul he's definitely going to be a love interest. He's definitely another Rochester and he is everything you do not want a man to be. He's violent, he thinks that his honor is more important than anything else, and he literally calls Lucy names like in a mumble behind her back in French. I like this book, I think it's very well written, but Charlotte Brontë and romances is just, it's a no-go for me. I'm definitely not going to keep on reading for that, but I am enjoying it. I think it is extremely well written. I really don't have much to say on part 2, so let's hope I have a little bit more thoughts and feelings about part 3. several weeks since I finished Villette, but I've only now gotten to the point where I have collected my notes. I have conflicting feelings about Villette and I think about Charlotte Brontë in general. First off, I will say this was just a really good book. I gave it 4.5 stars. The writing is something I can barely compare it to something else. It is amazing. The writing is so good. There are so many quotes in here that I wanted to look up. I wanted to understand more. I wanted to connect to other themes that I saw in the book. I think atmosphere, locations, all those things are wonderful in Charlotte Bronte's books, but I always have a bit of a harder time with the characters. Charlotte Bronte's characters are generally unlikable. And if they're not, they have a part that is unlikable about them, which I enjoy. I enjoy flawed characters, but it's always the question of how well are they written. And when it comes to love interest, I think Charlotte Brontë writes a lot of redeemable men, which is my least favorite trope, because I often feel like men are forgiven for so much more than women are allowed so much more different kind of behaviors than women. And although Charlotte Brontë is on occasion critical on different gender dynamics and gender rules, she can be very interesting about that. There were a few things in this book as well that I found interesting, especially when it came to women behaving like men. I think when it comes to the romantic aspects, there is generally something in Charlotte Bronte's writing that I just really do not enjoy. And it's a theme throughout all of the novels. I think it might be the worst in this one, because our love interest, Monsieur Paul, he is detestable. He is just simply detestable. I think in the beginning Charlotte Brontë writes him as this detestable man, because that is her intention. But she makes him a redeemable man, but sometimes I feel like, okay, great for a man to change. Do her men really change enough? No, they do not. Are they worth the main character that we have come to love? I have now read all Charlotte Bronte's novels and all my answers are no, they do not. Jane, Lucy, Shirley, Caroline, they all deserve better, and they all deserve not to be put through the shit that the men put them through. They are generally misogynist. All of them are misogynist. Monsieur Paul, is he one of the worst? I think in the things that he says, he is one of the worst. Why on earth he is hired to teach at a women's school, which I think if you would ask him, he would probably resent. Why Mrs. Beck does not fire him. Why she wants a man with the opinions that he has teaching young girls. Like, honestly, I don't know. I think I talked about when he locks her in the attic, because that didn't happen in part 3. One of the worst bits is when he wants to teach Lucy things about life. He wants to develop her intellectually. The notion alone, you're not her father, please. And there is this thing that he says. So he says that Lucy has a state of wretchedly imperfect mental development. He tries to teach her, and then he's going to teach her on what a woman should be like, and her response is nice and snappy. I do like that. A woman of intellect, it appeared, was a sort of lupus natura, a luckless accident, a thing for which there was neither place nor use in creation, wanted neither as wife nor worker. Beauty anticipated her life in the first office. And then he goes to say that he prefers passive, feminine mediocrity. And Lucy says in French, yeah, I'm not interested in that. Like, can I go now? She asks him permission to go, and he needs to grant her permission to leave, which I feel like there is such a fatherly element to her love interest that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. There is this need of wanting to be controlled. There is this need of wanting a man to put her in a place to contain her passions and emotions, and she's romanticizing that in a way that I feel like neither Emily or Anne did, luckily. And it's making me, of course it's making me uncomfortable as a modern woman, but it's also making me really not enjoy any romantic part of Charlotte Bronte's writing, which I feel like so many people still enjoy, but I just cannot see how you can romanticize the need for someone to suppress who you are, or the needs or the passions that you have. That is, in no context is that healthy. And I'm not saying that romance, that fictional romance only can portray healthy things, healthy relationships and sexual desires and feelings. Of course it's fiction, but it feels like such a threat also in letters that I've read by Charlotte Brontë, in a way that she wrote to her friends about her passions and her wanting to suppress those passions. I feel like she interwove it in her fiction in such a way that is incredibly unenjoyable. I'm curious to see how the others will feel about it during the live show, because I mean, I know Mary agrees with me on this point. She even feels stronger about it than I do, but I also know that many people are able to like recognize those elements and still really enjoy it, and I'm curious to see where that enjoyment comes in, because it's very much absent for me. And still, I gave this 4.5 stars, which I think is just a testament to the amazing writing in Villette, the amazing portrayal of depression, how this story wrapped up with Lucy's mental health as something even weeks after I still really need to think about. I do like the wrapping up in a way that we don't get a wedding. We get them working together and them having 3 years apart, which I think it increases that redeemable part. Bo Emmanuel, who is supposed to work on himself, create this intellectual bond with Lucy to increase their love, which I feel like is also something that Jane and Rochester do. As a novel in itself, it is really, really good, and even if there are parts that I don't consider enjoyable, it doesn't take away from the quality of the writing and the quality of this work of art, which is what I want to call it. This is definitely one of my highest ranking Brontë novels, even though romance elements written by Anne Brontë are incredibly more enjoyable to me. That does not mean that I think The Tenet of Whitewell Hall is as well written as Villette is, because I don't. Next up is The Professor, which I have read before, and I will just say for the 1000th time that I'm not looking forward to rereading that, but I am looking forward to changing my mind on that book, which will probably not happen. It's okay, it's okay. We will have the live show very soon. I should keep the time in mind, actually. Oh, in 20 minutes I should get ready for the live show. I will link the live show in the description down below if you want to watch it. We usually talk non-spoilers in the beginning and spoilers at the end, but if you have watched this video so far, first of all, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I love discussing the Brontë novels, of course, with you all. You can watch the live show in case you missed it. It was on Sarah's channel. And I will see you in the next Brontëlong vlog, which will be the very last. I do have a playlist of all the Brontëlong videos, also from my lovely co-host. I will link that playlist in the description down below, and you can peruse around if you have started joining the Brontëlong later. But for now, I hope that you have a lovely, lovely day, and I hope to see you in another video. Doei!